Welcome to Solution Focused World. For the next 4 episodes, we're going to talk about variations in how different practitioners around the planet use solution focused principles. And because this is not a cookie cutter approach, what this is major principles that are put together in a way that helps different people find the solutions they want and deserve. We're going to start with a brief review of foundational principles and then look at a group that's near and dear to my heart, Brief in the UK. They're the ones that I did my certification through. Major principles that nobody will disagree with is that solution-focused talk is about building hope for the person in front of you, using their memories and imagination to get them to build pictures so you can find successes past, present, and future to build the solution they desire, using these principles and strategies listed on the screen. Brief, I find fascinating. Harvey Ratner, Chris Iveson, and Evan George, no relation, they were therapists in the UK in the 80s who fell in love with the ideas presented by Steve DeShazer in a book. And they had such conviction that this was the way to go that they started training each other because they couldn't fly to Milwaukee to get training or fly Insoo Kim Berg or Steve DeShazer out for them. So they started training each other, watching video, going over case studies, talking all the time. And they fell in love with it so much they broke off and created their own business. And they had small children, they had families, but they fell in love with an idea of that this is the way to go, and they went for it. The museum model is the entrance is the entrance, the exit is the exit, following the client as wherever they take you. You are curious practitioners that are just asking questions, and they're painting the picture with you, giving you descriptions, actions, and people involved. That was a lot of pressure for me when I was first starting out. I was just like, how do you remember? But when I was watching one of Evan's cases, I saw he was taking notes during session. I asked him, I said, I was told you shouldn't do that. And he said, when should I do it then? I said, I don't know. In the States, they always say afterward. And he said, that's not a very good use of my time. And I said, wait a minute. Do you feel it hurts the relationship in any way? He said, no, not at all. Actually, frequently it takes a little pressure off and you get things that you can share with them. So I said, if I do that, can I create my own cheat sheet? He said, sure, why not? I created a version of what you're looking at here, and it can be used with any style of solution-focused practice, and we'll cover different ways that it can be. I have a simplified version after this as well, including one that has prompts. All of this is in the resource folder, so if you like it, please go nab them. If you're going to follow the museum model, you walk in the front. What's the front? The best hope and the clarifier that helps you solidify the contract. The reason why is that they make sure they usually have a clarifier is because the best hope isn't always obvious, or it's not always conceivable. Like if you're talking to a kid and their best hope is that the kid's parents don't get divorced. You can't do that. You can't talk about that. It's not fair to the kid. But what you could do is say, what difference would it make if your parents didn't get divorced? And the kid might say something like, well, I could spend more time with my dad. And then you could say, so if we could solidify what it would look like if you had a lot of quality time with your dad, would that be a good use of our time? And they'll say, sure. Then you have a best hope. 80% of the talk is going to be level 2 here, looking at instances, exceptions, strengths, looking at the next steps, and folding that into the preferred future, the desired outcome, so they really clarify the picture. At any point along the way, you can use scaling. You could even use different scales for different things that come up in the conversation. And then you conclude with the wrap-up. And the wrap-up doesn't have to be long. It's usually only 1 to 3 minutes long. But some people give compliments back to the client they're working with. Other people give reflections. Other people ask them, what were the most useful things you want to remember? With Brief, they start at the beginning. Best hope. Now, this is the usual path. Then they go into looking at the strengths, looking at the exceptions when the problem isn't present, and then extrapolating forward. Now, the one difference with Brief over the American version of solution-focused brief therapy, Steve DeShazer, Insoo Kim Berg, they looked at the miracle question as the springboard forward. And that was looking at, okay, a miracle happens overnight, but you don't know it. And you have exactly what you want. When you wake up, what are the first small signs that it's actually happening? And then they help you build that picture forward. For Brief, they take away the fantastical aspects of miracles and replace it with just pragmatic logic. That tomorrow when you wake up, you're going to be one step closer to that dream and that having that better day that you deserve. What will be the first small signs that it's happening? And it's the same thing. You just take out the fantastical aspects. And they use that as a springboard to really have the two areas that are circled in the bigger circle here combined, ping-ponging back and forth. And then they go to the conclusion. However, they don't have to do this. They could start with the best hope. And then if the person's not up for it, you could then say, okay, well, do you mind if I talk about something else for a second? What are you good at or proud of? And they're like, what? And then you get them to tell you descriptions, actions, and people that are involved in the successes that they have when things are going well. Then you can jump from there up to what difference would this make? And would it be useful if we could do more of that? Then look at tomorrow when it is happening. Then go over to the preferred future and look at the first small signs. Have them give you descriptions, actions, and people involved. Wrap up, and out they go. But there are many different paths. Just remember, you go in the beginning, you go out the ending, and in the middle you follow the client, having them give you descriptions, actions, and people involved at each of the steps. Again, here's a simplified version, and here's a simplified version with prompts. With all of this, just remember the parting words of Steve DeShazer. Problem talk creates problems. Solution talk creates solutions. And also, find out what works and do more of that. If you found any of this useful, please consider liking, sharing, or subscribing, and stay tuned for upcoming segments. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.